And welcome back to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. And I have my co-host over there, Kobe Pierce. What's up, Kobe? How are you this evening?
What's up, Dan? How are you, buddy? Welcome into
Great.
another Sunday reaction show. Um, Post game, Georgia, Florida, last one down in Jacksonville till 2028, I believe. Um, it'll look completely different down there the next time Dogs and the Gators get together. Um, let's hear what's some initial thoughts from you, Dan. Dogs win a close one um, down there. What are some of your takeaways from the game?
Well, my biggest takeaway is the one team that I cannot stand losing to is Florida. And I know that this Georgia team has become a second half team. So it's like the first half, as long as the game doesn't get really away from you, I'm pretty calm. And so thanks to the whole fiasco on YouTube TV, I had to go to my buddy Ed's house. And thank you very much, Ed, for letting me come down. If you know anything about me, if you know me at all, I do not like to watch the big games with people. Typically, because I like to just kind of like sit in my own world and be able, and I want to be able to hear and see everything, right? And I like to be distracted, but we're very similar, so it worked out perfect. But the first half, like neither one of us were totally panicked. That first drive was just a thing of beauty, and we'll talk about that for sure. But this is the first game. I mean, even the Tennessee game, it just always felt like something was going to happen, right? This game started to feel like it was getting away from us, and Florida started to build some momentum in that third and fourth quarter, and I was like, oh boy, this might get ugly, and I started to get worried. So that my instant reaction was, this is like the first game where I was really worried that it wasn't going to end well for us. Yeah, and well, I just did not want to lose to them. What was your like as you were watching the game? What were you feeling?
Yeah, I'm with you. It was one of those that I knew you were going to get a really nice punch from Florida. They're riding a high of interim head coach, 2 weeks of practice. They're going to kind of leave it all out there on the field, and I thought they did that. First half they came at you. You have a busted coverage that gives up an early touchdown. You have a turnover in their half of the field that they capitalize on. It was they're a good Florida team, right? I think Kirby Smart said it best in the postgame presser. He's like, shout out Billy Napier, man. Like, that's an elite roster with some elite high end talent on it. Like, just because they haven't been able to put it all together every game this season doesn't mean they don't have the ability to. I mean, this is a Florida team that beat Texas, a Texas team that beat the crap out of Vanderbilt for the better part of 3 quarters this week. So like you're saying, it's one of those seasons, it's one of those games, it's one of those weekends that you just go, "Hey, man, I'm happy with the win, and let me get the heck out of here." Right? Like it's a 4 point game in the end. Could have been worse. Like obviously, Gunner takes the knee at the one to end it, put it on ice. But it's one of those things that they're always going to be close. You throw the records out the window in rivalry games. They had some good momentum early. They had some good momentum late, right? Like there are a couple key plays here and there away. Um, but let me go ahead and get this out of the way right now, Dan, for
All right.
anybody that's watching. Um, I've said this before, and I will say this again. As someone who has lost a national championship at the hands of bad officiating and poor calls, I will not be apologizing for any questionable calls that go the University of Georgia's way ever in my life, forever as a fan until the end of time. I have seen enough bad calls go against the Dogs that I don't feel bad when we're on the other side of bad calls or questionable calls because I really don't think that was a catch for Florida. But I also am not going to sit here and you're going to say, oh, well, Georgia always gets all the calls. They most definitely do not. I would have a national championship ring right now if we got all the calls. So it's just one of those things. I get it. Officiating is super frustrating. It just seems like across the SEC as a whole, it's kind of in a weird place right now. Um, but man, there are bad calls all around all the time. I mean, I've never in my life remember a quarterback getting a false start on a clap before. So listen, it happens. I hate it for you. If you adamantly as a Florida fan think that was a catch and that's the difference in the game, hearts out to you, brother. Hope you can figure it out between now and next season. But as far as it goes, I'm not sorry it didn't go your way.
There were plenty of calls that didn't go Georgia's way in that particular football game, the clap. And if you watched Gunner the rest of the game and before that, there were many hard counts that he was doing where he was much more animated than he was on that one. So if you're going to call it once, call it every single time. That's crap. And then the hold on Dylan Bell, like, come, I mean, if you want to call it like a crackback block or something like that, maybe I could live with that. That makes a little bit more sense. And then listen, nobody's disputing that wasn't a targeting by KJ. I mean, that was textbook clear, whatever. Maybe he was actually trying to put his head on the side of the body and make a tackle, and he came right at him instead of trying to avoid him. And that's what I don't know. I'm not trying to excuse make, but the thing that irks me about that shit is it was not called on the field. Like nobody saw, all the officials were looking right at it. Nobody called it. 30 seconds later, they're like, hey, we're throwing him out. Like, and remember a couple weeks ago, we did if you could change one rule. That was my one rule. Like, do a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 type deal where you can choose to eject him or leave him in the game, or just give him 15 yards and move on. I mean, I don't like throwing people out of a football game for making a football play. Granted, he had his head down. I give you that. But there was no head or neck. It was I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. I mean, we could talk about this for a whole 50-minute show, I think, but I think we're beyond in a time where there's now money being paid to the players. You're allowed to gamble on the games. There are all these things. You have to find a way to change that rule where players aren't being ejected from football games, right? Like if the SEC wants to fine the player, whatever, to me it should be just like a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. You get 2 of them. First one, it's a 15-yard penalty still, but on the second one, then you get thrown out. I think that's a fair way to kind of handle it because in a lot of cases, I'm not just saying KJ's in general, but his falls into this category. But in a lot of cases, what ends up happening is a tight end or receiver, they catch that ball looking back at the quarterback, and as they turn and out of the corner of the eye, they see somebody coming to hit them, they protect themselves, right? They protect their midsection from a hard exposed hit. And so they shrink down. And when they shrink down, I feel like that's a lot of times where you see that helmet-to-helmet contact where the helmet was probably going to hit somebody in like the shoulder or the ribs. All of a sudden that squish towards the defender, and all of a sudden it's helmet-to-helmet, kind of like this situation. And then to me, they're very loose on defenseless receivers, right? Like to me, that's a very tough call of like, oh, he's defenseless because he's looking back at the quarterback to make the catch. I mean, how else is he going to make the catch? But also, how else are you supposed to tackle him? You know what I mean? Like that's always been a weird rule of like, well, he's protected because he's looking the other way. The man can't look upfield and make the catch at the same time. Like he just can't. Like,
and so what you're asking the defender to do is be like, okay, I'm gonna let you catch the ball and then I'm gonna tackle. Like, no, it was like it used to just be a good football play. How many times when you were growing up did you hear separate the guy from the ball?
correct. I mean, it just is what it is. So
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I just got off on a little sidetrack, whatever. But let's talk about that first drive because we've been talking about offensively and defensively. Georgia's getting off a little bit of slow starts. We always talk about your offensive coordinator should be at his best on the script, and that hasn't always been the case. We haven't always looked extremely sharp coming out of the gate. I want your take because I'll tell you what mine is right off the rip. I thought that was an absolutely beautiful textbook drive to open the football game, and I felt amazing watching it. How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, when the way it started, I would have told you that this game probably would have gotten away from Florida a little bit sooner because I thought we really looked in rhythm better than we probably had in any opening drive that I can remember outside of maybe like Tennessee. Kind of early in the year where we kind of marched right down on them, score the touchdown with Gunner. It felt the same way, right? Like we were humming. And so again, that script, the execution, all of that looked great. It just, like you're saying, some things here or there, kind of the rest of the first half, kind of limit you from kind of marching the ball down the field. Again, a lot of times, like I told Katie, we crossed the 50-yard line, I think twice, and ended up punting the ball instead of kicking a field goal in that first half, which is, I would say, pretty rare for a offense to do, especially a Georgia offense that's been so good. Like, you got to that no man's land world, and you couldn't pick up one more first down to be able to kick a field goal. That's the thing that they'll have to address. Like you're saying, there were some penalties, there are some holding calls, there are some things, a fumble, a bad snap on a first down that makes it 2nd and 19 after a no play. Like you're saying, some unfortunate miscues that, for one thing or another, they allow you to learn. Um, what are your thoughts? I thought, the defense too in the first half, the big booger for them has been third downs. I think Florida was 0 for on third downs, even though we gave up some points. What were your takeaways first half defense for the Dogs?
Well, I mean, they scored on a kickoff return, on a long kickoff return, and then they got a short field on a turnover, if I'm not mistaken. Did they not? Or am I making that up?
So yeah,
Wasn't there a turnover?
yeah, there's a turnover. So
The gunner fumble. Well, I don't know what I'm thinking.
the gunner interceptions. What are you thinking?
Yes,
The one
on
that
the tip,
hits.
yes.
The one that hits. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the point is that they were getting their points off of Georgia mistakes. They weren't getting the field driven on them in the first half. The only thing that I was getting a little bit frustrated with was DJ Lagway has looked absolutely terrible at times. And part of what has made him look terrible is people have been putting pressure on him. And I know that Georgia got a little bit of pressure from time to time, and losing Hall early in the football game surely didn't help. And then losing KJ right before halftime didn't help. I don't know, and I don't know what I expect. I mean, I don't know if I'm asking them to send the house, or I fully anticipated us being able to disrupt him and make him play like a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience, to be quite honest, and in the past has looked really bad when he's pressured. And I thought that we could capitalize on that. And to their credit and to his credit, and maybe it's just because Florida has an amazing offensive line, and I'm not quite sure, but we did talk a little bit about they had a very quality offensive line. And the one thing that we all pointed out last week on our show on Wednesday was that their results have not been what they want, but the roster of Florida is pretty good. Now, granted, they were down quite a few players, so it is what it is at that point. But I just felt like the defense was playing well, but there was just some missed opportunities maybe to get home, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm not taking away from what they did in the first half. I'm just saying I felt like you had an opportunity to kind of really snuff them out early, and we just didn't do that.
Yeah, like you're saying, I thought DJ's one of those interesting quarterbacks. Like, I think they were talking about he's like 6'3" or 6'4", 245 pounds. Like, he's a big man. He's mobile when he has to be, but I wouldn't necessarily say his legs are a constant threat. So I agree with you that I kind of thought that we would have taken maybe advantage of the fact that he tends to be a guy that's going to stand upright in the pocket more times than not, um, and really get home. We had no sacks in the game, which is kind of the MO for this Georgia defense through the first 8 games of the year. Is we don't get home consistently. And I get it, like, sacks are not always on you. Like, you're not always going to rack up the sacks. But, man, I would just think that, like you're saying, on a couple of these early downs, first down, second down, where you're struggling anyways, right? Like, we're one of the worst defenses under the Kirby Smart era on, like, second down, I think is what I saw. I would just feel like eventually you would dial up a blitz. And if you get beat on the blitz – you've been getting beat anyways.
Right.
I think that's the hard thing. So, it They played good though. I mean, that's the hard thing, right? Is like
Right.
we didn't give up any sacks, but we also didn't give up a single third down conversion in the whole first half. Like
0 for 5, baby.
that's what we've been crying about for weeks now. Is that third down defense has been horrible, 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 horrible. I mean, even Coach Smart's like, he made a joke on game day that like people want us in third down because they're successful when we're in third down. So, Harrison, speak at the devil.
Man gets him a
Florida
Georgia
fan I know.
backdrop and then blurs it.
I didn't blur it. It was a setting from last time that I haven't changed. I got to change it. And I actually got to fix the camera. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Take your time.
Good. We're through the first half, buddy.
Oh damn! I just realized that my virtual camera does not work on this.
We were just talking about the defense's performance in the first half. While we're happy that they didn't give up any third downs, they played pretty solid. But my takeaway was we missed a couple opportunities to maybe get home, and Kobe's was that maybe just have a little bit more pressure. What was your take on the defense in the first half?
First half, I thought was much cleaner than it has been. Obviously, I mean, look, I think really at the end of the day, it's like the drive they scored on was a short field. I think you put that probably on Thorson in terms of shanking that punt, and you put yourself in a bad spot. The thing with the defense that I think is more troubling to me is the bust you have on the back end. That's an issue. And it's not just without KJ Bolden. They've been busting on the back end throughout the season, even with KJ. Granted, KJ hasn't been busting too much on the back end that I've remember. But to me, that's the more concerning part. I will say overall, though, it was nice to see the defense have a good first half. All things considered, probably their best first half of the year.
Given the opponent, yeah.
Yeah, given the opponent.
And the other thing too is, and Kobe kind of hit on this a little bit, where we've been getting beat deep a little bit. So, and this was my struggle, right? It's because they did play well, and I don't, and like I said, I don't know what I'm exactly asking. I don't know if they should just send the house and just risk it for the biscuit. But I just want to see a quarterback on his back. And then the other thing that once we start getting to the second half is the quarterback getting loose and getting big yardage is going to be a problem at some point that we're going to have to button up. But all in all, first half defensively pretty good. All in all, offensively, I think the narrative about Bobo has gotten really quiet because I think he's been calling games really well. Now, granted, I know that people don't like the screens. I get it, and maybe we ran a couple too many in this particular game that they were getting on them pretty well, but they do work when they're blocked well. But I really do think, and maybe I'm alone in this, but Bobo's really kind of been in his bag the last couple of weeks. I mean, there have been some really good play designs. There have been guys running open, and we don't necessarily capitalize on them every single time, but there are guys running open. And we had some good plays called that were negated on penalties or a bad snap, like you said. I really didn't have a problem with the play calling at all. And not that I'm some type of play calling expert or anything like that, but if you're still complaining about that, I just don't think you're watching the game.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing on the play calling, and I'm with you on a lot of that, and I get the penalties, I get the bad snap. Man, I would have just liked to have seen something, not necessarily like a heat check, but it was just like when things got kind of stagnant there at 10-10, it's like we needed something of like, okay, listen, our 11 guys are better than their 11 guys, and we're going to run this drive in a way that proves that. And I'm not saying what that needs to be or what that doesn't need to be, because their defensive line gave us some troubles in the run game parts of the game. They were physical, they tackled well, they did a lot of things, but I just guess that's where, to me, every once in a while we kind of go quietly into that middle eight in the end of the first half, beginning of the second half. We, at that moment where you can kind of grab that momentum back from a team that is kind of maybe shouldn't be in the game, but it's riding that high of they are in the game. To take that away from them going into halftime would have been huge. So I agree. I mean, some of the play calls were there all night, but you have a big holding call on Dylan Bell. You have the fumble. You have a couple things right there that just kind of derail you early. I mean, the pass to Noah Thomas could have been better, yes, but I mean, hit old buddy in all the hands, so just ends up in the wrong team. So
I think what was different about this game than every other game, it's Georgia didn't have a problem starting the halves. They had a problem just continually putting things together on really on both sides to a point. Like, you come out, you score on the first drive, and you're sitting here, you force a 4-and-out on defense, and we're all sitting here thinking, man, how easy Georgia looked on offense that first drive. Like, Georgia might go up 14-0. This game might already be over, and we're not even halfway through the first quarter. And then you come out in the second half, you force the 3-and-out, you go down and you score a touchdown. It's like, man, Georgia gets another stop. This game might be a 2-score game. And second half is completely different from the first half, and you're sitting here thinking a whole different thing. But I'm with you, Dan. I think Bobo's had some really good weeks, and I get it. There was a lot of punts to this game, but to y'all's point, I don't know if Georgia's struggles on offense were as much of a play calling, execution issue as they were. Well, I guess you can consider penalties. I mean, I think most of these drives where Georgia punted, penalties backed them up, or a negative play, or a non-yardage gain on first or second down just put you behind the sticks. Georgia's average third down was 9 point something. That's like last year. Like, Georgia's going to be inefficient when your average third down is 3rd and 9. Like, that's not the place to live on offense. We talked about that all year last year. And this is one of the first times I remember this year where they're averaging 3rd and longs consistently throughout a ball game. And with the way this team is supposed to win games on offense, you're not asking yourself to be in good spots when you're in 3rd and 9. But to your point, I don't know if that's as much of a people. And look, the people who don't like Mike Bobo will never like him, will never give him credit. He can go 7 for 7 versus Ole Miss on scoring drives, and they're still going to have something to bitch about, something to moan about. Oh, Ole Miss wasn't good defense. Still going to be talking about it, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day to those guys. But I really love what we did see, because I do think a lot of Georgia's issues on offense in this game were self-inflicted.
And my other takeaway is in the second half, Florida threw their biggest punches. They threw the kitchen sink at us. They were not necessarily trick plays or anything like that, but they found an emotion level that they went to that I think you have to give Georgia a lot of credit for overcoming that, because I think when that momentum started to shift in the second half, it really got that feeling of there was no way back, because that momentum started to build and Florida started to have success and Georgia started to struggle, and it didn't look like there was an end in sight. And for Georgia to overcome that, I think speaks volumes to the character of those kids, man. I mean, like, if you've ever played in a football game where the momentum shifts that drastically, it is hard damn work to flip that script and to get the momentum back. And they did. They really did. And then, of course, we had just a gutsy ass drive to seal the game. I know that's far down the road from where we're talking, but that drive to seal it, guys, and Chauncey Bowens was just so good. And, I'm so glad that he flipped to Georgia and he's one of our running backs. And I know he's been kind of hampered with a calf the last couple of weeks, but I'm so thankful that he was able to play in this game. And I know Kirby said that any one of the backs could have made that touchdown run, but all right, I hear what you're saying. But
let me tell you, 33 needs more carries.
Yes,
I think
sir.
it. This podcast is a believer. Harrison may or may not say it for everybody, but I think at least two of us believe that 33 is the man until proven otherwise. So, I think that the biggest thing about it is just that you have to play momentum both ways, right? Like you have to capitalize on your momentum when things are going right for Georgia, because obviously, to me, they have that ability to prevent from getting like down in the dumps, right? Like obviously Ole Miss is scoring at will. Florida has played a really, really good defensive game, and they've played just good enough offensively to be in this game. I still am ready to see that switch flip for us mentally of, hey man, let's put our foot on these guys' throats, make them quit. Because there was an opportunity in this game where if you don't have a couple of those penalties, you don't have a few things here or there, in the second quarter, you go basically a penalty and you punt inside their 50, you punt the next time inside their 50 again, and then you have a drive that ends up in a field goal right before the half. It's like you were headed towards the end zone on all three of those drives. If you just score touchdowns on half of them, you're up, 2 scores going into the halftime. I'm not sure it's really the same vibe coming out of the locker room that it was 10-10 if it was 24-10. I think those are the small things as a top 10 program that, Kirby's going to tell his guys, hey, man, we got to capitalize on these moments. Like, we've fought the hard fight. We've gotten the ball out of our end. We're heading to their side. We're at the 40, the 35. We got to keep on chugging it down into the red area and convert a couple of these things. So, like you're saying, I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty every day of the week. So at some point you survive. It was a weird week where 3 other top 10 teams lost. And I don't know, Harrison, what do you think? I mean, we got Mississippi State coming up. You feel like we're in a pretty good spot going into that after this Florida win? You think confidence is still high for the fellas?
I mean, I don't think there's been anything that's made them lose confidence per se. I mean, even in the Alabama loss, you think everybody walked away knowing that they could have and probably should have won that game, considering the moments they're late that were missed opportunities. Like, I don't know if there's been a performance so far this year from Georgia's perspective that's like, man, that's going to like test your confidence at all. I mean, obviously, with some of the deficits, it's like, okay, you got to have confidence. You got to know you're going to have chances to win the games. But
Oh boy.
2 weeks ago now.
Oh, there he is.
After 2 weeks ago on offense, I don't know how you couldn't have any more confidence. And I think that confidence rolled over on the opening drive quickly. I mean, that was surgical from the very beginning. And the first drive of the third quarter, I don't think it was as surgical, but man, when Georgia needed to play, they got it. And I mean, I'm sure they feel good going in Mississippi State. I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as an affair as maybe everyone thought in the preseason. But that's been the story of the season so far. I mean, who the heck had Florida being a 3-4 football team coming into this weekend in the preseason? Okay, I'm here. I'm doing a show with the one man that had Florida just absolutely sucking shit.
They're horrible. I hate them.
I thought they would at least be an 8-4 football team.
If you would have told me they would have beat Texas and still would be 3-4, I probably would have laughed. I'd have been like, "Oh, they beat Texas? They're rolling." So they've just had some bad. I mean, they've just had some bad luck go their way. Not bad luck, but just like, I mean, they're good. They're a good roster. Again, we talked about that before you got here. Like Kirby Smart said it. Shout out Billy Napier for putting this roster together. I saw an article today, and then I'll let you go, Dan, because I cut you off. My apologies. I saw an article today from like a Florida person in the media that was like, it will take years to recover from the damage Billy Napier has done to Florida. And that is just so wrong, in my opinion. Like, so wrong. Because to me, they have more roster talent now than they did under Dan Mullen.
Yes. I think that's just an emotional post, honestly. I mean, I think sometimes with writers that are too connected, I think emotions can get the better of them. And Harrison is loving this quote right here. But anyway, having watched some of the games this week, the Georgia Tech NC State game, right? Like there's no world where NC State should have won that football game, but they did. So that leads me to a question that I want to ask both of you guys, and I want your honest opinion on it. What are the odds that Mississippi State game is a trap game? Like it, I mean,
it 100% already is.
I mean, is it dangerous in your opinion?
So the only reason I would say it's not a trap game is because Mississippi State has put it on tape that they are a competitive football team, right? They lost by 2 in a close game against Florida. They have a huge comeback victory against Arkansas this past week. They played Texas, I think, if I remember right, super tough. Like they have put really good product on film, kind of like Florida in a way of like they've been right there in these football games. I guess maybe since we play Texas the next week, you could say we're maybe looking ahead a little bit, but I think that they have your full attention right now. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're playing Kentucky in more of a like Kentucky's good, but they can't beat you vertically. They can't, they don't have the same threats. Like Mississippi State got the threats.
Anthony Evans being one of them, caught the game-winning touchdown pass for them last week or this past weekend versus Arkansas. So a little bit of familiarity there. Look, I get in the traditional sense, maybe this isn't a trap game, but I do think you are in a little bit of a more trap environment because of the stylistic matchup here. Georgia loves the thrill of almost losing a game. Mississippi State loves the thrill of almost winning a game. And it's going to be a clash of those two styles. Like, I'm not going to be shocked. Neither will y'all if Mississippi State's up in this game at some point. And I'm not just talking, they get the ball first so they score. But, hey, maybe there's a 10-point deficit at some point in this game. And you're like, everyone's screenshotting it. Georgia's on the ropes. Georgia's on the ropes. And we come out of it, check your phone 30 minutes later, Georgia somehow won the game. I think that's been the story of the season so far.
Are they still running that 3-3-5 that gives us fits? Or have they moved away from that? Because it's, if I'm not mistaken, the last couple times we played Mississippi State, it wasn't pretty.
Last year was they had some turnover. I think Georgia had like a turnover or two early in the first half of that game. But they were up. They were up at half. And then it turned into a quote-unquote shootout at the end. I think it was 41-35 last year. It was actually like the end of that game, it was actually close in terms of scoreboard.
Yeah. I worry about games like that where and it's at Mississippi State, right?
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Cowbells,
11 a.m. local.
So I'll run you through the games this year, just so everybody, talking about trap games. We won't talk about any of the like weird, like pointless games. They beat their 2-3 people they should have beat non-con. They pull up the big upset against Arizona State early, 24-20. They play an overtime game with Tennessee that Tennessee ends up winning 41-34. They go to Texas A&M, kind of get beat to sleep, 31-9. They play for 2-point deficit, 23-21. They play Texas to overtime, in which they lose 45-38. And then they have the comeback victory against Arkansas, which they win 38-35. The Dogs are 7.5-point favorites going into the game. So yep. I would say, like you're saying, I mean, this is a team that, for the most part, is going to score. I mean, just the bottom line. They've scored on just about everybody except Texas A&M all year.
Texas A&M looks like a SEC championship type team. If I had to guess, probably them and Alabama will be playing in Atlanta this year, unless the craziness that was like at the end of last season occurs again, which may very well occur because I think that chaos came in November, late November, if I remember, because Georgia knew it was in the SEC championship after, before the win versus Georgia Tech. I remember that because it was Auburn. No, it was who was it that beat Alabama late last year? It was
Oklahoma.
Auburn beating Oklahoma, or Oklahoma beating Alabama that helped secure Georgia that appearance in this championship game. Boys, a little bit of news on the plains this weekend as Kobe's now weekly Sunday name tag. Hugh Freeze out at Auburn. Auburn's now joining what is quickly has already become a saturated coaching market. I don't know how many other historical jobs will come open. I'm kind of thinking it's getting to the point where these other jobs that are like in a wait and see approach with their openings are probably saying, man, maybe we need to run it back just one more year because we're not going to be able to get our top 3 choices, like say a Florida State potential. Then again, maybe Florida State fires Mike Norvell and decides, hey, we'll go all in on James Franklin and try and win those sweepstakes. I'll be curious to see if Auburn joins the James Franklin sweepstakes. We did this last week in the Hot Topics about who should such and such program hire. What's a realistic, because if you tell me Nick Saban, I'm kicking off the damn show, realistic hire for Auburn that is one that maybe puts a little, I don't want to say like fear, because I don't know if there's necessarily many coaches that Georgia fans fear per se, but it's a really good hire and one that Georgia should take notice of.
The offensive coordinator at Oregon is someone that, I think that he would be a name at an Auburn, which I just don't know. See, that's the thing, right? Is I just wonder and worry about things like habits, right? You've hired the last 2 coaches, kind of more offensive mindset, the more run and gun, all of that. That's been Auburn, maybe the last 3 coaching staffs now, if you include Gus. I'm not sure they don't look inward towards more of a defensive mindset for a little while. Dog85 says Brent Key. I think that he would definitely be high on any list for anybody if you wanted somebody that's going to preach physicality and try to win the hard way. It'll be interesting to see if he would jump ship at Georgia Tech.
Question with Brent Key for me is, does Buster go with him? Because if Buster goes with him and you're playing Brent Key and Buster Faulkner every year at an Auburn with an Auburn talent pool, I think that's one that maybe keeps people up at night a little bit more. Granted, who's to say he's not able to nail the offensive coordinator hire again and go get another guy that gives Georgia fits. But that's going to be hard to do following up Buster Faulkner because he's done a terrific job. Dan, you're about to butt in before I say something.
So the 2 coaches that were kind of floated out there were I think it's Tulane's coach is Somerville or something, or Summerall. And then somebody posted, and granted it was a smaller site, but they were saying the University of Texas El Paso, or maybe San Antonio, sorry, the coach there, because it's kind of a program builder. And I guess I could see that, but and I think with a lot of these jobs being open, you're going to have to think outside the box, and you're not going to. I mean, not everybody can hire James Franklin. Not everybody can hire, supposedly Penn State is in on Brent Key, and they're going to make him say no to a really rich contract. And I think the hard thing for Georgia Tech is I think Georgia Tech wants to keep him, and I think he wants to stay. I mean, that's his alma mater. I think he would love to stay there forever and ever, amen, and try to build a winner, because if you're able to do that, you're a handful of coaches that have been able to do that at Tech over the years. I just don't know that they can pay him. And, Harrison and I differ a little bit on that, where he thinks everybody has the money. And I do not believe that some schools actually have the money to spend that way.
I mean, when you look at it, these schools ain't broke. Don't let them let you believe that. Don't let them make you think you got to pay $60,000 in tuition because they're broke. It's just investment and willingness to spend is what I've seen. Georgia did not spend on its athletic facilities, did not want to spend on sports for over 2 decades. And it took the man that was Kobe's coach to finally get them to invest. And look, now they're starting to get the return on investments. Does Georgia Tech want to spend money? Because sports has not been their damn priority. May never be.
The biggest problem with Tech for always and forever, and I hear what you're saying, engineers are not poor. I get it. The issue is that most of the people that go to school there are not from here, and they don't give back to the school. And that's where the money comes from. It's the boosters. Like the schools, yes, they generate revenue, but the ability to spend comes from the boosters. Alabama, when Nick Saban said, I need $100 million, there's a check on his desk from somebody for $100 million, and it shows up the next day. The problem with Georgia Tech is they have a lot of rich alumni, but a lot of them are foreign students, and they don't give a crap about football, so they're not writing those big checks. And that's where the disconnect is, and that's why they don't have the ability to spend the other programs do. Yes, their alumni base has a ton of money. If they could convince them to pour it into football, they could be as competitive as anybody. The issue that they've always had, and I'm not saying that it will continue, I'm just saying in the past, the issue that they've always had is that the boosters that have the money, they give money to the school, but they earmark it for an engineering program, or they earmark it for a new library, or they earmark it for this. It's not based in football. So I think that's Georgia Tech's biggest issue. Auburn doesn't have that. They got Yellowwood. Yellowwood is writing a check for whatever the hell they want to spend money on. And if they want to pay a coach $15 million, they're going to do it. They have the money to do it. And I just don't know that Georgia Tech could match that, is my point.
I'm not sure.
For Auburn is they got a cheap buyout too on Freeze. Like that's one of the biggest things going their way is they're not paying an ex-head coach fucking
Whoa!
Wow.
$15 million.
Wow.
They hang out with Dan too much, man.
Wow. I think, and call me crazy here, and I don't know, maybe Summerall, he kind of throws a wrinkle in this thought process for me. But I think after you've had such a coaching carousel at Auburn, right? Like you paid Gus big money to leave, you paid Harsin big money to leave. You haven't paid Freeze huge money to leave, but I mean, you still paid him $15 or $18 million to see you later. I'm just not sure that some of these schools aren't going to take a gamble on a coordinator and let it ride for 2 or 3 seasons and see if they don't strike gold. I think that when you keep swinging and missing at coaches that are head coaches and have been head coaches, but like then they can't transition, or you put too much pressure on them to transition too quickly, right? Like Gene Chizik, his offensive coordinator is Gus Malzahn. Gus comes in and you give him 8 seasons, 9 seasons to be the head coach. Since then, you haven't given 5 seasons to the next 2 guys. Same way down at LSU, right? Like Les Miles comes in, he gets a while, but then like Les is on the way out. Ed O doesn't get a long leash. Brian Kelly doesn't have a long leash. Like sooner or later, you want somebody that's about the state of Louisiana, that's about LSU football, and somebody that you can have there for 8 years, 10 years possibly. And I think the big thing is to temper those expectations of, 9-3 is going to have to start being okay with these fan bases to some extent. Like there are going to be years you're 11-1, 10-2, maybe 12-0, but not many. There's a lot of college football now is going to be, 10-2, 9-3 is a really, really good year. I just think that there's going to be eventually that turn back to, hey man, let's hire a coordinator. Let's hire an up and coming guy. Kind of like Oklahoma did with Brett Venables, and give him time. Like Oklahoma has given Brett Venables time to adjust to being a head coach. He's had no head coaching experience, and now it seems like he's growing into someone that can lead that program in the SEC in the long run.
It sounds like, talking of coordinators, sounds like apparently DJ Durkin, the interim head coach at Auburn, is actually being given a fair shot. Like it's, hey, you're the interim, but this is your audition for the job. Like this isn't, hey, you're the interim until the next guy gets here. It's like you could be the next guy, but you got to go win. And I don't know how now. Obviously, DJ Durkin has head coaching experience at Maryland. I forgot about that until I saw the story about it. I don't know. With Auburn, it's interesting because it's the talent. It's kind of like Florida. They have the talent. It's there. Like Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, those guys deserve to be playing meaningful football late in the season. Several guys in their defense deserve to play meaningful ball late in the season. It's just you got to find. It's the same thing with Florida. It's like you just got to find the right guy. Like you need somebody to actually bring stability and is not going to mortgage their season on one season or mortgage their time there on one season. A la, I think Brian Kelly kind of mortgaged his season on this year and last year. I think Hugh Freeze mortgaged it all on this year, telling everybody at SEC Media Days, hey, if we're not in the college football playoffs, we're a disappointment. He set his own expectations, and you can't come back after saying that and say you need patience like he did yesterday. When you were saying in the offseason that anything less than the playoffs is a disappointment.
I think the big thing and the question I'll pose to y'all, if you're DJ Durkin and you're saying you're living in a 3-game season now, 4-game season, are you playing the freshman quarterback in hopes of showing the boosters if you can win with him going into the end of the season, can you win with him going into next season? Or are you just throwing the 2 older quarterbacks out the window and saying, hey fellas, if we're going to go 1-3, 0-4, I want my freshman quarterback. I'm not going to burn his red shirt because it's only 4 games. And we're going to ride in and see what's up for 4 games with him. Let him a little bit of trial by fire. But, I mean, what are y'all's thought process on that at this point? I mean, it's 5 stars. You got to worry that you may lose him potentially with the head coach being fired, in my opinion. So
it seems like to me, Dan, it's like he could go 2-1 and like lose to Vanderbilt. I mean, shoot, he could go 1-2. I mean, I feel like he could. Well, obviously, you can't lose to Mercer, but I mean, it just feels like at Auburn, if you pull an upset on Alabama, you're getting your damn job. Like that's just what it feels like.
Yeah, they just got way too much talent for the lack of production that they're getting. And I don't know exactly I don't watch enough Auburn football to know exactly what the issue is. I'm sure that there's somebody who like we always the Peter King theory, right? Where you can know a lot about every team, but you're never going to know as much about a team as somebody who watches them every single day. So I'm not going to sit here on the show and pretend like I could speak intimately about Auburn's struggles. But it just seems to me like they have way too much talent for the level of production. And I think that's what gets these coaches in trouble ultimately is when everyone believes that the roster is capable and they're just not producing. You know, you bring up a great point about playing the young quarterback. I'm intimately familiar with that scenario. Moving on from the older guy and going on to the younger guy. I mean, it's a thing. It's real. It exists. So I mean, just definitely a way to go. I don't know exactly how that affects the red shirt. I know that they can play 4 games, but I don't know if there's like intent involved or anything like that. So I'm not exactly sure about that. But the other part of it too is if you don't feel like you have a good structure, do you really want to put a young quarterback in there and then maybe you could ruin his confidence, right? Maybe let him sit on the sidelines, watch, and have him believing, well, if I was playing, we'd be winning, as opposed to he's in the game and he's not winning. Now he believes he can't win. So there's different ways to think about that. Auburn's ultimately going to be fine. I mean, they recruit too well. They have too much money, all those types of things. Same with LSU. Same with a lot of these programs. Like Penn State's going to win football games, and it doesn't really matter who the head coach is. They're going to win football games. This is Penn State. So I think it's just getting over the hump. And the biggest issue is there's not many people who do. And I think that's the point that we're all harping on is that you're going to have to live with some of these struggles now because there's only really 3 coaches out there that are winning at an elite level. And that's Kirby. That's Dabo was, but he's not anymore. But Ryan Day. I mean, it's really Kirby and Ryan Day. Am I wrong?
And now Sig, I would say.
Yeah, but he hasn't proven anything yet.
Look,
in my opinion, that's my opinion.
I'm gonna wait on Sig. I'm gonna press hold on Lanning, although Lanning's getting close to the point where it's like, okay, he's proven sustainability. Like we saw Sark put together 2 good years at Texas, and now the Pipers come to be paid in terms of your offensive line's not there. Your talent at receiver may not be there what it used to be. We'll see with all Kobe. It's an interesting point because when you are coaching for your future, how do you show a future? Play the young guys, play the upstarts. To me, what's so weird about Auburn this season is if Deuce Knight was ready to play, why has he not played already? Is my only question. It's like, since he has not played at all this year in meaningful situations, when quarterback play has been an obvious struggle, it just makes me think that he's not ready. And, but at the end of the day, it could very well be, hey, the reason he's not playing is because he's a young quarterback, and for a coach that has very little job security like Hugh Freeze did, maybe he wasn't ready to mortgage his job on a freshman winning the game. But look, I'm biased. We're all biased in this situation. Give Ashton Daniels another chance, a real chance, an actual chance in an offense that's not just RPOs. He played well at Stanford
for sure,
with much less talent, So, and all three of us agree on that one. But valid talking point about Deuce Knight.
I think to Dan's point, I was just going to read this real quick for you, Dan, because I was curious on this. For programs of they're going to win no matter who's there. It's just crazy to look at, especially with the run Georgia's kind of been on. Since we met in 2017 in the SEC championship game, they were win away from a playoff appearance. Auburn is. They have gone 8-5, 9-4, 6-5, 6-7, 5-7, 6-7, and 5-7. And right now they're on track to have another losing season. That
never happened.
They have had 2 winning seasons since 2018. And basically 2019 they went 9-4 and fired Gus Malzahn. That's kind of crazy to think about, isn't it?
It's funny to me how there's all these debates around what's the better job, Florida or Auburn, but they've both made the same mistakes in terms of you fired one coach because he wasn't recruiting at a high enough level to your liking, but he was a good game day coach. And you hired a guy that was a good recruiter, but didn't have it on game days, like the deciding factor in some of these games. And now you're back to square one, trying to find a mix of them.
Is there any way we can sell those guys on Raheem Morris? I mean,
in a game like college football right now, where you need your timeouts, he's not the guy.
Listen, don't come on here and bash Raheem. We need him to move on to a college job. Listen, we could go in circles on these coaching jobs, and like the one thing I was going to add, you asked maybe why they were still playing the older quarterbacks at Auburn. It may come down to this because they paid them a lot of money. So like the boosters want to see a return on their investment. That's all I got on that.
How's that looking for Miami right now?
I'll put it out. I'll put it out there.
I still think he's great, dude. I mean,
Georgia did their due diligence on Jackson Arnold, just like they did their due diligence and then some on Fernando Mendoza. So, we can say
we were in on him, were we not?
They were in on Fernando Mendoza. So
that would have been crazy to see.
I mean, yeah, Buddy's probably going to win the Heisman at Indiana. So.
That's wild. Oh, that was not on my bingo card.
Yeah. I didn't think that was getting brought up tonight. I haven't even thought about that, Kobe. Really haven't.
How close were we on Mendoza? Was that real?
Yeah, I think we finished second.
It was very real. It was very real.
I mean, let's think about it, though. Like, y'all see where Nick Saban lied about benching Julian Sayin for a whole year and having played the scout team?
Mm-hmm.
That was funny. Julian Sayin, I would say him and Mendoza are probably 1 and 2 right now for Heisman, and I would say Lena is Mendoza at this point in the season for me.
Listen, I think that if you win at a school like Indiana, you should get a bump. I mean, honestly, you should get a bump. I mean, because you don't have the talent around you that somebody like Julian Sayin does. I mean, if you want to go man for man on a roster, they're not the same stratosphere. But they're still
what about
winning.
Ty Simpson?
Alabama's got plenty of talent. I think
I'm not taking Ty over either of the two of them at this current time. I mean, Ty is playing phenomenal. I'm not saying he wouldn't be like invited to New York, maybe like the third or fourth man, but to me right now, what Mendoza and Sain have done to this point has, to me, they are the top two, and then it's kind of like a little bit of a, even like Trinidad Chambliss has had a phenomenal, like he just doesn't have the stats because he hasn't played every game this season. But I mean, I saw something that he's like about to pass, maybe just past Johnny Manziel for as many like 300-yard passing and 100-yard rushing games in SEC history. The year that Johnny won the Heisman. So I mean, he's putting up the statistics too. So, I think like you're saying, Ty is just, it's hard with that Alabama A man, like kind of like Dan saying, people know you just have it around you, right? Like you just have that extra talent around you that's helping you forward.
And then you got a guy like Julian who's just like, F it, I'm not going to throw any incompletions anymore the rest of the year. I mean, that guy. Whew.
I'm curious to see what the odds look like here over the coming weeks now that Pavia essentially has had his campaign ended with 2 back-to-back losses. Or no, not 2 back-to-back losses, but 2 losses in some of their biggest games where he just didn't play well, particularly. I don't think you can give it to him. Although I do think people are starting to sour on the Diego Pavia story in terms of being a guy everybody doubted to now being a Heisman. I think people are done with their sympathy for Diego Pavia. I don't think he's necessarily an underdog anymore because he's certainly not acting like one. He's acting like a guy that expects himself to be among the best in college football. So another one just to throw out there, I don't think his completion percentage is where it needs to be truly in the conversation. But if they continue to win, I'm sure he will find himself in the discussion as Marcel Reed over at Texas A&M. Again, I don't think his completion percentage and maybe statistically is all there for him to be a serious considered potential winner. But I do imagine with how Texas A&M is rolling, he'll probably make the top 10, at least going into this whole thing. So anyways, last thing, then we'll wrap it up. Can we go ahead and say that Penn State pulled the trigger too early? Like, if they had kept Franklin, I don't think they would be as bad as, like, okay, I get it. The loss to UCLA and Northwestern were inexcusable, terrible. But I think the loss to Iowa had just as much to do with the players reacting to Franklin being fired as it did them just not playing up to expectations.
Let me take this one. They fired him when they did so they could fire him. I think their biggest fear was that he was going to win football games and then they would have to keep him again. So I think they pulled the trigger when they had the ultimate leverage to fire him. Because we've seen that at other places too, where a guy will win just enough to where you really can't fire him. There's been many instances like that. Yeah.
I think the hard thing for Penn State is, again, and Nick Saban, him talked about on College Game Day, which is phenomenal. Preseason expectations and expectations that fan bases and the media put on you a lot because of the success you had. Like Penn State had a good year last year. They make a playoff run. They're a competitive football team. The hard thing is they just return so much talent. Like you return the quarterback, you return both running backs. Like you just have a lot of talent back on that roster. You fight tooth and nail with that Oregon game. You end up losing it in double overtime. I just think it's the fact that with a coach that has had that much experience, that you kind of let that end up impacting you the next 2 games, right? Like if you lose that game at UCLA, he's fine. If he comes back home on, like you're saying, against Northwestern, you win that game by 21-28, you go and you beat Iowa, you lose a game to Ohio State, like you have 3 losses at this point in the year. Like, yeah, people are probably pretty disappointed, but you're getting to roll another one out. I think it's the fact that he allowed it to kind of snowball. I think it's the same reason my man Dabo is going to be out of a job at the end of the season finally with Clemson. Is you just let things kind of get away from you, and it's difficult to kind of stop that snowball effect. So is it a little premature when they fired him? Maybe. I think personally, if you've given that much to a program, that long to a program, they should allow you to kind of step away under your own, accord at the
Let
end
you
of the
finish out the
season. For
Yep.
sure, because I think about all the different things that he's not going to get to be there for, like senior day. You know how pissed I would be if I was a kid that had been recruited by Penn State, had decided I was going to attend the university, Penn State, be there, stay there, play for him, do all these things, and then on senior day, like he's not going to get to be the guy that like gives me a hug, tells me how proud he is of me, tells me about all my accomplishments I've achieved on and off the field, stands there and takes a picture of me and my family. Like none of those things will they be allowed to happen with him being gone. And I know that's like a really like stupid answer maybe, but like that does mean something to you in 10 years and 20 years as you continue to grow, is like, oh, I got to take a picture with the interim head coach at Penn State that year because James Franklin got fired, a guy that I've known since I was in the 7th grade. So it to me, it's still in bad taste. I think he should still be there. You should have just made it pretty known to him that no matter the outcome of the season, you were more than likely going to part ways.
I think that's fair. Good
Would it be
points.
completely unprecedented if they allowed him to come back for senior night?
I mean, I won't say it's like unprecedented, but like
I can't think of a situation on the top of the head.
yeah, I doubt.
I don't even know if he'd do it. He probably wouldn't do it.
I don't know. They
Maybe
paying
for
the
his,
man a lot
obviously he'd do it for his players,
Paying.
but
paying the man a lot of money.
yeah. All right. Well, that's gonna wrap it up. We'll be back here Wednesday night, 7:30, here live on the Top Dog Tall podcast. That's Kobe Pierce at the bottom. The ghost of Hugh Freeze. That's Dan Kiley. I'm Harrison Reno. Quick, boys. Which coach gets fired next Sunday? Anyone off the top of mind?
Could be Mario Cristobal if it doesn't watch his ass.
Shane Beamer is going to be the name I throw in the hat.
All right. All right. Well, there you have it. Either of those two come true. Have a celebration, I guess, for whoever gets it right. All right. Wednesday, 7:30, previewing Georgia, Mississippi State. We'll see you in a couple days.
Go Dogs.